Thank you very much. I want to extend a very warm welcome to all of you and also express on behalf of the Ministry and the joint stakeholders our gratitude to FIPI for these awards, to the committee which finally decided on the awards, doctors, professors Kakotkar, Mashelkar and Shri. At least with two of them I've had the privilege of working very closely. One on nuclear energy related issues and the other on intellectual property issues when I was ambassador to the United Nations in Geneva. And of course, Shri Pathan is a veteran of this industry. These awards were instituted, I'm informed, sometime in 2007. That is before FIPI in its present form came into being. And the 17 years of these awards and the kind of people who have been awarded, if you were to compile a list of those and the categories, I'm not just talking about the 20 categories today, that also tells the story of the transformation in the Indian industry. Secretary Jain, Minister of State and Arun, all of them have referred to some aspects of this transition. But I think one of them mentioned the fact that we are today in a position where we are not at the receiving end. I choose words carefully. I'm not saying we are in a dominant position, but I think one of them said that we can play the market card. That means different things to different people. Having a large market is by itself not sufficient. I think if you were to look at empirical evidence, every agency in the world today estimates that in the next 2 decades, at least 25% of the increase in demand will come from India. Today, we are consuming 5.4 million barrels of crude oil in a day. 3 years ago, when I joined this ministry and Pankaj came on board slightly later, it was only 5 million barrels a day. And at the rate at which our demand is growing, we will be consuming 6 and then more as we go along. I think in the last 2 or 3 days, whenever I've attended a function, a celebration of this kind, we've had estimates from a $4 trillion economy, we will be very soon a $7 trillion, then a $10 trillion. But the constant factor in all this economic growth is the requirement of energy. And I think energy, which I used to refer to as the lifeline, but after the last ADIPEC meeting, I think my colleagues are changing, and the term they are now using is vertebrae, because that was what the language in Abu Dhabi was. But the good story, I think, it's not that our energy consumption is increasing. The composition, the mix, that is changing. I mean, who could have imagined that in 2014, a 1.5% biofuel blend, we will reach 20% biofuel blend. I struggled on the biofuel question as part of a larger ecosystem when the government's intent then was that we would have 5% blending in 10 of our states and union territories, and we couldn't reach that. We had a target of 10% blending by November 22. We did it 5 months in advance. We had a 20% target for 2030. We are so confident now that we are able to complete it by October of next year. That is 5 years in advance. At one stage, even when we came on board, there was always the anxiety that the ethanol blending program may falter because of non-availability of the kind of feed that was required. I think Pankaj will agree with me, today our anxiety is in a different direction. We have too much of feed available because we have been able to demonstrate that biofuel blending is not only good for the green energy transition, but it is also good for our agricultural sector. And I think the amount of money we've saved on the import bill, about 91,000 crores, that has gone to the farmers. But the stories in the other sectors are equally impressive. Compressed biogas, natural gas. And I think all this would not have happened if the actual economic operators hadn't shown the kind of aggressive desire for change, backed up by a benign and supportive framework of government policy. And I think the two together is what makes India a happening place today. I think a function like this, I would be remiss if I did not mention the major reforms carried out. By the major reforms, I mean opening up large parts of that 3.5 million square kilometers of sedimentary basin. 1 million square kilometers, which was no-go area, I think 99.9% has been opened up. And the results are there in front of us. All of you are veterans in this sector and you possibly know much more than I do, but you take decisions today and they will pay off in the years to come. Equally, if we let the eye off the ball, let's say 20 years ago, we are facing slowdowns now. I'm not making a political point, it's a fact. When I joined the ministry, I had some veterans tell me on my face, why are you bothering about E&P? There's enough oil available in the world, and instead of committing large amounts of money in big infrastructure projects of E&P, it would be much simpler if you were to import. That is a point of view. I don't agree with it. Even though more and more oil is coming on the market today, I don't believe in it for a different variety of reasons. And one anxiety I've had is that if I were to believe in the point of view that you don't need to do E&P because there's enough oil available in the world, the action or the decision making lies in somebody else's hand. And a few years ago, for very good reason, a lot of people turned around and said, stop investment in fossil fuels. As a result, no fresh investment came in. As a result, existing wells, which by themselves will diminish 5, 10, 15, 20% every year if you're not investing in them. And suddenly you had a crisis. Today, I believe it is it's taken for granted that we need to do the transition. And I think that's where the India story is going. Not only in biofuels, natural gas, compressed biogas, green hydrogen. That's another very promising story in India. But the reforms that we have done also will ensure that in terms of traditional hydrocarbons, we will, even if the rest of the world gives up, we still have a population of 1.4 billion. A rate of growth, which somebody just mentioned, is 3 times the global average. It could grow further. We will need to ensure that on the three challenges we face, availability, affordability, and sustainability, we are not found wanting. I think so far we've been able to navigate that very well. Going forward, I see our import dependence on crude oil continuing for quite some time. I'm not in the speculating business, but if I were to be safe in my assessment, I would say at least 20 years. Our import requirement on natural gas, I'm much more optimistic because we have been increasing our production by something like 18% for the last few years, but our consumption is going up. Also, I think global availability of natural gas situation will ease. I think 2025 will be a challenging year, but not challenging to the extent that we can't. I think many of our oil companies, I look at our own, you're already looking at looking more long-term. We have long-term agreements with countries like Qatar. We had an agreement up till 2028. I think we extended it by what, 30 years or something? 20? 25 years, yeah. Now, there is more gas on the world to come, and it will all be hopefully more reasonably priced. Our domestic operators, I know I have my favorite people sitting in the audience here, and I have to give them some headline. So you can say the minister struck a very optimistic note on availability of natural gas for domestic consumption. If you word it generally, it will cover the CGD sector, it will cover all the other priority sectors, and then of course you can leave the rest to your imagination. But genuinely, I am very positive on that. Earlier, the overall approach was that I'm sitting on a sovereign asset. Some people in the world still have that, by the way. By the way, let me make a general comment. More and more energy is coming on the market, and it's coming in a manner which we may not be familiar. Today, the Western Hemisphere is producing more crude oil than the places that we were familiar with. I mean, Guyana, Brazil. Brazil has a production of 3.3 million barrels a day. Another 400,000 barrels a day is coming on there. Guyana is a well-known story. So much so that I encourage people to say, look for oil and gas in the Andaman Sea. There is a Guyana or many Guyanas waiting to be discovered there. Canada, US produces 13 million barrels a day. And even before the celebration of democracy there, I was on record to say, no matter what the outcome of the election, the US will put at least 1 million barrels per day of crude on the market again. So more and more oil is coming. So if some people think that it's a sovereign right and you should leave it there, I think that will change. More and more oil will come into the market. How will that affect price? Well, if geopolitical uncertainties, and I'm choosing my words carefully, if those uncertainties are taken care of and the turbulence levels goes down, I think the more and more energy should be available in the world, including new green energy. So going forward, for countries which have ambitious plans for economic growth and welfare of their population, I think it's going to be easier, not more difficult going ahead in the years to come. We went from production sharing contracts in 2016 to revenue sharing contracts. Oil and gas is an expensive business. If you talk to the oil majors, and there are not too many of them, they will turn around and tell you, all right, we're willing to come on board. But you can't have an attitude with them, which I found sometimes in the past. That's why they left. They're all right. If you find the oil good, that's mine, that's my sovereign asset. Thank you very much for your services. So now I have to pay them back. So I tell them, if I want to do deep sea seismic surveys, there are 2 or 3 companies in the world which have that expertise. Our approach to them now is, please come and help us. Don't make any commitment. We will ensure that your goodwill and services are adequately compensated. And if we strike oil or gas, you will have the right of first refusal. And I think that changed narrative is beginning to encourage our partners, and we have backed that up by, in the next 6 months, I'm sure this will be ready. All the data will be available in the University of Texas in Houston. So major reforms like opening up 1 million square kilometers, and it's paid off. I digress from that. In the OALP, Open Acreage Licensing Policy Round 9, 38% of the bids were in that 1 million square kilometers. And I'm hoping that when OALP 10 comes, after we are able to pilot this amendment to the 1948 Act through Parliament in the next few days, then that will be even more pronounced in terms of the OALP bid. And I'm told the OALP 9th round bids will be physically given in a month's time or so. They've already been announced. Another month or so. So this is work in progress. More than that, I think the good news is that today we are, with all humility, the burden of our message, or the main message that we're giving, is that, listen, we've had some interactions with you. My colleagues have gone on road shows. They've been to London, to Houston, to other places. We picked up points, but if there are any still points left, let us know. And in this draft piece of legislation which is before Parliament, and the fact is, you know, this 1948 law was designed not for the petroleum leases. It was designed for minerals, metals, the entire energy gamut. Now we realize that it required separation. So in 1957 we produced a separate one for minerals and metals. But we continued to be governed by the 1948, where the burden of the language still pulls you down a little, without a petroleum lease being, properly coordinated. So we are hoping to resolve that. And the message I give to most of our interlocutors outside, if there are any other points, please let us know. The idea is that this sector, both the transition, has to be accelerated, and I'm confident it will be. And when we move into natural gas and green hydrogen, in natural gas, I'm sorry, even though we talk about moving it from 6% to 16% in our overall energy mix, the real fact of the matter is that we are closer to the 6% than the 16%. In the exploitation of the sedimentary basin, I think we are doing better. But that also, again, you can decide on an objective, but to implement it, there is so much of gestation and implementation that is required. But all in all, that picture is looking very good. When these awards started, I thought maybe it was a feminist jury or something. But I'm delighted to see very young people coming up for awards, and in sectors and for things which are to do with innovation, which have to do with technology. I do a monthly brainstorming. Minister of State Suresh Ji and I had the last one. And what struck me in that monthly meeting, the last one, was the extent to which deep tech is being used. AI is being used. I mean, we only hear about these things on a on a peripheral basis that they are doing it for refinery automation. No, but when you go get into it in detail, a lot of AI and deep technology is being used. So I want to compliment all the stakeholders. I think I have to talk about IEW, even though there was a short presentation. But what struck me about IEW, and I want to share my assessment with you, is not the fact that it is rapidly grown. We had the first edition in Goa. in Bangalore. We had the second edition in Goa, and I want to take advantage of this platform to say ONGC has got 240 acres of land in Goa, which they have assured me will be world class is not enough, but top of the cutting edge tourism conference, not conference tourism site. And with the help of EIL and others, I think the 2025 third edition will be in Delhi, Yashobhumi, but the fourth edition in 2026 February will be in Goa. I have attended now in the 3 years that I've had the privilege of being associated with this ministry, many events, Gastech, Adipec, they are all very important platforms to provide opportunity for interaction. But I think IEW is in a special category because there we bring together not only the main stakeholders in traditional energy, new energy, but we bring together the technology people, the startups. I was very impressed. Two of our companies, I think it was BPCL and HPCL, they showcased domestically produced electrolyzers for the green hydrogen production also. And I have had, in the preparation for that, when I review the 2024 IEW, which was held in Goa in February this year, total amount of exhibition space was 18,500 square meters. In Yashobhumi, we have already, I think, reached 26,000 and we are going to take it up to 28,500 square meters. The exhibitors in IEW 24 were 600. We are now expecting more than 700. The delegates expected in Goa we had 45,000, this time we are expecting 70,000. Speakers we had 360, we have 500. Country pavilions we have more than 10 already sold as against 6 there, so it's catching on. But what's catching on is also that you're taking the hardcore energy business, whether it is in the area of petroleum, natural gas, CBG, green hydrogen, you're now involving the IITs, the engineering colleges, the technology institutes, and there's a very heavy emphasis on young startups, etc. participating. So when I meet some of the youngsters, you can only be impressed. So I think that is the positive ambience within which this event is now going to become a regular feature. And I must say that I've already been complimented by my colleagues from the other governments who tell me, how did you manage to do it so quickly? I said, no, we learned from you. So, we learned from the best, and then we are able to assimilate that to what we have to offer. So once again, let me thank all of you for making the time. My heartiest congratulations to the awardees. My grateful thanks to Suresh ji and for taking the time out. I don't know whether you all know that he has, more than 300 films that you have acted in and produced, or only acted in? Close to. 300, I mean, anything after a few is, but no, we're very happy to have him with us here. Thank you very much for Chairman ONGC. You're also the headmaster of FIPI as Chairman ONGC. Good. And to the new Chairman of IOCL, welcome on board, although he's a veteran of the IOC for many years. And Pankaj, of course, is the guy who does all the work. I come occasionally to, address all of you, but thank you. I think it's a great team, and I think going forward, we can look forward to many more impressive stories, but I think the India energy story is really ticking, and all of you are making it, giving it that luster. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.